In this lecture, I'm going to take up the first chapter or the introductory chapter of Mahatma Gandhi's An Autobiography, the story of my experiments with truth. So, this chapter is very important because it tells us why Mahatma Gandhi wrote his autobiography, right? So, just like the first chapter or the introductory chapter of Rabindranath Tagore's My Reminiscences gave us a glimpse at why he started writing My Reminiscences, or what was the thought process behind, starting to write a book containing important incidents from the author's life. So, similarly, here Gandhi provides us some insight through the introductory chapter, right? And the chapters that follow, chapters 1 to 8, as part of your syllabus, those contain the incidents. And as you will find, that unlike Rabindranath Tagore, in many cases, in fact, in most cases, Mahatma Gandhi uses very simple sentences, and he does not write, he, of course, he does write in some cases, but mostly he writes simple sentences and very few compound or complex sentences. And the reason for that too becomes clear when you read the introductory chapter. So again, we'll follow a similar exercise. I have selected some excerpts for you from each chapter, and today we are going to begin with the introductory chapter and look at some of the excerpts. All right. So the first excerpt from this book is as follows. Gandhi says, 4 or 5 years ago, at the instance of some of my nearest co-workers, I agreed to write my autobiography. Right? So he tells us of the trigger behind starting to write an autobiography. So it was his co-workers, who sort of told him that your autobiography is a necessity. Um, you must write your autobiography, and that is when he started. Let's see what happens further. Swami Anand wanted me to write it separately for publication as a book, but I have no spare time. I could only write a chapter a week, a chapter by week. Something has to be written for Navajivan every week. Why should it not be the autobiography? The Swami agreed to the proposal, and here am I at work. So you see that Swami Anand is the publisher here, right? Hopefully you have been able to understand that. And it was Swami Anand who wanted Gandhiji to write his autobiography and then publish it as a book. But then publication as a book or publication uh, every week are different in nature, and that difference needs to be understood before we proceed further. So you see, when a book is written, a book, if it is published in one go, then the entire book has to be written, then it has to be proofread, and then the entire publication process has to pass through before the book comes out in the market, right? But if it is published in a magazine every week, then that hurdle does not occur, right? Then there is no necessity to write the book for, say, 20 years or 10 years, in some cases shorter periods. But as literature students, you are aware that there are authors who have written their books for decades. James Joyce, one example, he wrote his books for decades, right? He published 3 novels in his life, and each novel took him years to write, right? So you see, with Gandhiji, since he was a politician, since he had an active political life, it would not be possible for him to, write a book over years, for several years, and then publish it. So in the meantime, there was this magazine, Navajivan, where he was publishing every week. So this is why he says something has to be written for Navajivan every week. Why should it not be the autobiography? So you see, he found a way to, not take years to write. At the same time, he used this as an opportunity to publish something for Navajivan every week, right? So every week he used to write one chapter, and as you will find that Gandhiji's chapters are shorter, unlike Rabindranath Tagore's. So with M.K. Gandhi, the chapters, like I said, simple sentences, easier for everyone to read, and as I said, the chapters are shorter, and once again, as far as your syllabus is concerned, you are going to see 8 chapters, and all these 8 chapters were published in Navajivan week by week, right? So it seems that the publisher Swami agreed, and that is when MK Gandhi starts writing his autobiography. All right. So moving forward, let's look at the next excerpt. But a God fearing friend had his doubts, which he shared with me on my day of silence. What has set you on this adventure? He asked. Writing an autobiography is a practice peculiar to the West. I know of nobody in the East having written one, except amongst those who have come under Western influence. And what will you write? Supposing you reject tomorrow the things you hold as principles today? Or supposing you revise in the future your plans of today, it is not likely that men who shape their conduct on the authority of your word, spoken or written, may be misled. Don't you think it would be better not to write anything like an autobiography, at any rate just yet? So you see, previously in the previous excerpt, you have seen that MK Gandhi tells us that he started writing or started thinking of writing an autobiography at the instance of his co-workers. But someone, or essentially, there were people who were also opposed to the idea of writing an autobiography. So you see, there were people on both sides. When Gandhi um, planned or started to think about writing his autobiography, there were people who supported it. There were obviously people who wanted him to write an autobiography, right? But there were also people who were, skeptical that someone in the East, or specifically someone from the non-Western world, someone in India, would write an autobiography. That was, a bit, weird, so to speak, because it was peculiar, as they say. And this person, this critic, whom Mahatma Gandhi describes as a God fearing friend, his doubt was that why have you set out for on this adventure? Why are you writing an autobiography, which is something done exclusively in the West? And those who have done it in the East have done it because of Western influence. And but that is not his core objection. The most important objection of this person to MK Gandhi's writing an autobiography is that supposing you reject tomorrow the things you hold as principles today, or supposing you revise in the future your plans of today, is it not likely that the men who shape their conduct on the authority your word, spoken or written, may be misled? So you see, this is the core objection. Because remember, Gandhi is a politician, and as a politician, right, he's not just a politician. He's also a social reformer. He's somewhere in between the two, right? Between a politician and a social reformer. Now, the important thing here is that there are hundreds and thousands of people who follow Gandhi, right? There were thousands and thousands of people who were influenced by his ideas, and took part in his movements, right? The Satyagraha, or the Dandi March. You must be aware of many of these events. So I'm not going into that part, or I'm not going into the political, dimension or social dimension of his work. What I am going to try and point out to you is that there were hundreds and thousands of followers of Gandhi, literally followers. If Gandhi went on the streets, those people would follow him. Gandhi started walking towards Dandi, and soon there were thousands of people doing the same. You see, so that was his influence. Now, this critique, the person who has tried to point out what may be the problems, or what may be the shortcomings of writing an autobiography, so he points out that since there are thousands and thousands of people, um, you know who shape their conduct, to use the quote in the text, to who shape their conduct on the authority of your word, won't they be misled? Because it is always possible that if you are writing your autobiography, say at the age of 60, and you are someone very popular and thousands and perhaps millions of people follow you, what if you change your ideas, right? What if your ideas undergo a change, right? And what if the beliefs that you hold on to today are not your beliefs, 5 years later? Won't the people who read your autobiography be misled? So that was the objection, right? And let's see how Gandhi has addressed it. Obviously, This did not stop Gandhi from writing his autobiography. You already know that, which is why you have the text. But maybe this criticism, this critique, maybe that influenced Gandhi. Let's see in what way. So Gandhi says this argument, the one you just came across, the one I read to you and explained. So Gandhi says this argument had some effect on me, but it is not my purpose to attempt a real autobiography. So you see, Gandhiji is already making a distinction between real autobiography and some other kind of autobiography. I simply want to tell the story of my numerous experiments with truth. You see, this is where the book gets its title from. I simply want to tell the story of my numerous experiments with truth, and as my life consists of nothing but those experiments, it is true that the story will take the shape of an autobiography. So you see, now Gandhi is saying that uh, I don't really want to preach any ideas in my autobiography. He is responding to that criticism because it had some effect on him. So that criticism from that quote God-fearing friend of Mahatma Gandhi, so that clearly had some effect, and Gandhi clearly thought about it, and then he also responds to his thought, to this friend's thought, by telling that I'm not going to preach anything. I'm not going to tell the readers of my autobiography to follow certain principles or ideals. Rather, I'm just going to, take up instances from my life. This is something even Rabindranath Tagore had done, and therein you find the similarity. I'm going to, take up incidents from my life, and most of my most of the incidents that I'm going to pick up are my experiments with truth. And my book, my autobiography, is essentially going to be a book, a collection of experiments with truth. All right. And in that sense, it is not a real autobiography, as he says. Right? It will take the shape of an autobiography because it will be arranged chronologically, and it will, have incidents follow one after the other. Right? But then again, it is not a real autobiography. So please understand this important distinction here, um, and and following which we will move into the next excerpt. All right. So the next excerpt goes, I should certainly like to narrate my experiments in the spiritual field, which are known only to myself, and from which I have derived such power as I possess for working in the political field. If the experiments are really spiritual, then there can be no room for self praise. They can only add to my humility. Right? So, very important again. This excerpt is also in response to the criticism, right? In response to the criticism that what if you write your book and then your ideas change, and then the people who read your book are misled, right? And in continuation to a criticism to, uh, in response to that criticism, Gandhi says, he has already said that this is not a real autobiography but a collection of his experiments with truth. And now he says that um, all my experiments are in the spiritual field, right? And those experiments give me power to work in the political field. But since they are actually spiritual, in my autobiography, I won't be praising myself, right? I'm not going to write the autobiography in a way so as to claim that I am a great person, right? Rather, I'm only going to describe my experiments with truth, hence the spiritual dimension to the text, and therefore there is no room for self praise, but it can only add to my humility. I hope you're able to understand this point. Remember that these two excerpts, these two quotations, the ones that appear before your screens now, those are in response to the criticism that Gandhi had received from his friend, who questioned the very idea of writing an autobiography. Okay, now next excerpt. This is again, remember, from the introductory part of the chapter. There are some things which are known only to myself, or here oneself, to be, to be more compliant with the text. There are some things which are known only to oneself and one's maker, These are clearly incommunicable. The experiments I am about to relate are not such. They are, but they are spiritual, or rather moral, for the essence of religion is morality. Now, the importance of this quotation becomes clearer when you read the text, right? But to give you a glimpse, to give you a hint of what to expect when you read the text, uh, Gandhi says that, see, I have already told you that the book I am writing is going to be spiritual. It's not going to be about my self praise, right? It's just going to contain my experiments with truth, and that very, you know, those experiments are actually a spiritual exercise, and hence the book is not going to contain any self praise. It is going to only add to my humility, and that he has said before. Now in continuation he says, he adds a kind of, suffix to his idea, and this suffix is described in the excerpt I just read to you. So he says that even though my project is spiritual, there are certain things which I cannot communicate in words, right? There are certain thoughts and feelings which are between me and my creator, right? That is my maker. And these thoughts I cannot express no matter how many words I write, no matter which form, which language I use, simple sentence or complex sentence or compound sentence, no matter what mode of writing or communication I use, these will always be incommunicable, right? However, I'm not writing those things in my book. The experiments I am about to relate are not such. So he says they are spiritual, or rather moral, and you will find, as I said, I will give you a glimpse of what to expect in the text. You'll find that the incidents uh, that Gandhi narrates in his autobiography, they do have a dimension of morality, because you will find that at the end of every incident that he narrates, you will see that there are choices, right? And those choices are moral choices, right? Hence, indeed, uh, this book, the experiments that he describes, the experiments with truth as he calls them, are a very spiritual, but more specifically a moral exercise. Then he says, only those matters of religion that can be comprehended as much as children as by older people will be included in this story. See, at the beginning of this lecture, I told you that unlike Tagore, who is a poet and artist, he has his metaphors, he has his long sentences, his wonderful, ornamental sentences. That is not the case with Gandhi. I already told you that. You will notice that he writes in mostly simple sentences. And I also told you that the reason is mentioned in the introductory chapter. And here goes. Only those matters of religion that can be comprehended as much by children as by older people will be included in this story. So you see, by design, right? By design, Gandhi's writing is in a matter of fact way, in simple, uh, crisp sentences that can be comprehended by any reader. So I would argue that Mahatma Gandhi's writing, at least in this book, is simple enough to be comprehended by a school child, right? Someone going to school in class 5 or 6 can easily comprehend these stories, right? So that is the simplicity in Gandhi's writing, at least in this text. However, in contrast, if you like to see Tagore in contrast, because I'm teaching you that text as well, remember that Tagore is a poet, right? And he has these metaphors which may not be possible for a small child to comprehend, right? You came across several of those metaphors. You won't find any such complex conceits or metaphors in Gandhi's writing. Remember that by training, Gandhi is a lawyer, right? He deals with facts. In his in practice, he is a social worker and politician, right? So his thinking and his writing is also in a matter of fact way. So he does not have many metaphors, does not have many conceits. He does have a few, of course, but you will find that they are far less, than the other author that I have taught you, that is Tagore. So let's continue with this excerpt. If I can narrate them, In a dispassionate and humble spirit, many other experimenters will find in them provision for their onward march. Again, remember that Gandhi has millions of followers, right? And hence, he is aware that when he publishes this autobiography week by week in the magazine he has mentioned to us before, thousands of people will read it. And it is a known fact at that point in time that whatever Gandhi does, thousands of other people will follow soon, right? And hence, uh, this is one of the reasons why he chooses to write in a very dispassionate and humble spirit, because he believes that if he does that, if he writes in a dispassionate and humble spirit, if his narration is such, then many other experimenters or many other followers will be encouraged and then take up the modal spirit that is encouraged in these books, right? Like I said, the book is not only spiritual but also moral, because every incident, you will find Gandhi facing a choice, most of the incidents, and then sometimes he makes a wrong choice, but soon he realizes that he has made a wrong choice, right? And hence, in writing this book in a dispassionate and humble spirit, Gandhi hopes that it will help other people as well. Far be it from me to claim any degree of perfection for these experiments. I claim for them nothing more than does a scientist who, though he conducts his experiments with the utmost accuracy, forethought, and minuteness, never claims any finality about his conclusions, but keeps an open mind regarding them. So, again, you see, so Gandhi uses a very simple metaphor. He compares himself with a scientist. He says that in this book, I have just written down my experiments with truth. Now, any scientist conducts experiments, and his experiments are forethought. Forethought meaning he has planned those experiments, and he does them with acute minuteness, right? He puts in the finest bit of detail in his experiments. But even after he has put in so much efforts, he does not claim any finality, right? He does not claim that these are the only conclusions that can come out of his experiments. Rather, the scientist approaches his own experiment with an open mind. uh, he or she may go like, uh, I have come up with 5 conclusions, but it is possible that one of these conclusions contradict each other. It is possible that there may be 5 more conclusions. So you see, there is a degree of open-mindedness to a scientist conducting experiments. And similarly, Gandhi, in this metaphor, is trying to compare himself with such a scientist, saying that all my life, until now, I have conducted numerous experiments with truth, which I am going to communicate through this book, my autobiography. And I am also keeping an open mind. I am not saying that the lessons I have learned from these experiments are the conclusive final lessons. I too keep an open mind, with the belief, with the knowing the possibility that more conclusions, more lessons are possible. So, for today's lecture, I'm going to stop here, because this is again a longish chapter, and in fact, this is the longest of chapters in this text. You'll find that chapters 1 through 8, those are relatively shorter, and the longest of chapters among them is not nearly as long as the chapters you have come across in Tagore's writing. So, overall, those chapters will take much lesser time, but this chapter, the introductory chapter, is longish, as you can clearly understand, and I will stop this lecture here, and in the next part of this lecture, in the next one, I'm going to continue with this chapter itself.